Hey everyone, we are here with a DM roundtable to answer some awesome questions with amazing YouTubers. So here I am with three amazing YouTubers. Fred, can you tell us a bit about your channel?
Yes, very quickly. I'm Fred Wheeler and I run the How to D&D YouTube channel. So that's what I do. I talk about Dungeons and Dragons.
Awesome. Josiah, can you tell us about you?
Yeah, my name is Josiah, also known as Dungeon Dad. I run the Dungeon Dad YouTube channel, which is also about Dungeons and Dragons, with a big focus on monsters and converting old school monsters to fifth edition, so you can spring them on your players.
Oh, amazing. And AJ, where can you find your content?
Just type in AJ Pickett on YouTube and you will find me. I have a massive archive of content which is quite similar to Josiah's, actually. I mainly focus on monsters, particularly the long play, deep, in-depth exploration of the lore of each monster as it's come through all the editions and outside sources and stuff. And I do live streams and things where we hang out and chat as a community on weekends, which is really good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Also, I should mention you should check out Josiah's channel trailer. It is one of the best in the entire world.
absolutely. Check it out. Check it right now. Not right now, but it will be around somewhere, pop here around above. Don't miss it. It's hilarious.
Finish the video, then go check it out.
Yeah. All right, let's get to it. So tension is the driving force of stories. It makes the players really care about the game and is a great catalyst for role-playing. My question to you is, how do you maintain tension during your game? Is it something that you do actively? Fred, what's your take on that?
Well, I don't do tension. I have tension-free games. Everybody's happy and never suffering from any kind of tension. You know, if you play Curse of Strahd with me, you won't be scared. You'll just be calm and relaxed the whole time. No, no. Look, tension is one of those things that it's like a technique, right? It's just a technique and a series of techniques, and you put it all together. And if you put enough of those techniques together, you hopefully get your result. It's not guaranteed, and it doesn't work with everybody. So I tend to try to surprise my players. I'll use monsters, I'll use traps, I'll throw in stuff they weren't expecting. I will just do things that are just outrageous that they would think should not belong in a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, or they would never have occurred to them, might suddenly happen. Like suddenly they're sitting on a portaloo and, you know, there's a poo monster coming between their legs and trying to eat them. Whatever I can possibly think of, it doesn't matter how outrageous and ridiculous and inappropriate it is, of which is probably not suitable for YouTube, by the way. I will do that, and I have no qualms. But the other thing is pauses. I do a lot of pausing when I need to build up tension, and I leave a lot of questions unanswered. So I will give them a broad stroke, and then I want them to start asking questions to be like, okay, he said this, but what does he actually mean? And if I force them, it's part of the teacher in me. We were taught that to get people to engage with you, you do not just go all over them. You have to give them a little bit of information and then get them to ask questions. And if you can't get them to ask questions, then you ask them questions and get them to answer those questions. And so you have to make all your questions or get them to sort of look at open-ended questions, because that collects the most amount of information. So I always try to leave descriptions with big holes that are quite obvious. My players will be forced to ask a question about. And I take breaks, because with tension, right, you can't have tension unless you have a low period. You have to have the body at a state where its biology and chemistry and their mind is actually calm, and then push it up. And then before they pass out and need to go to the hospital and the ambulance arrives, you need to drop it down before that happens, right? So you've got to have a take a break and let them unwind. And I tend to, with those sorts of games, it's an hour and a half is a long time. So sometimes a break of an hour is good, and then back into it again. And then hopefully when they go home, they can't sleep and they have nightmares the whole time. character death is another one. You know, don't take character death off the table. If you present character death as a potential, for some players that's like a ooh, and for others are like, sweet, I got another one. So yeah,
it really depends on the player, and death can really create tension. With the risk of death on the table, you can the game suddenly and the story has more meaning to it. So Josiah, what's your take on tension?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Fred just said. I think that when it comes to technique, what you touched on there, saying, you know, like it's a lot of different techniques you all bring together. I think that's completely true. And the two that I use the most, the first is the tone of your voice is a big one, and how you're speaking, because that is informing your players like what's important, what's not important, and what they're paying attention to, right? A perfect example of this is, without getting into spoilers like last time, I was running this Curse of Strahd campaign, and for those who haven't run or played in that campaign, Strahd is a very like present villain. He shows up to like taunt the party or hang out with the party and just like chat with them, because he's not frightened of them a little bit, and he's arrogant as hell. So the party was used to talking with him and him showing up at different times to basically just make fun of them. The whole time though, I played him very calm and confident, like he's in control, he's very calm, he's, you know, smooth talker, doesn't really get too ruffled about things. But to anyone who's read that adventure, knows much about like vampires, beneath that is like an ocean of rage and just like straight up evil. So I remember the players in the game that I was DMing, one of the points of that campaign, which this isn't really a spoiler, this is like a main feature of it, is the party is invited to go have dinner with him at some point. And what they do there's a whole bunch of different ways that can go. But the party was invited and they didn't show up. They were like, screw that, this is probably a trap, we're not going to show up, whatever. So then he showed up to meet them after they had just had this huge battle. One of them almost died. None of them were above 10 hit points. And they were like, oh, we did it. And then Strahd showed up and was like, huh, you guys didn't show up to dinner or whatever. And the party was just like talking amongst themselves. And then Strahd very calmly just explained, he was like, all right, well, I'm going to kill one of you for that. So you guys can decide who it's going to be. And once you decide who I'm going to kill, let me know and I'll rip your soul out of your body. You have a minute or so, I guess. And then he just like hung out, smoked a cigarette, and the party was like, what? And they were just like, we're not doing this, whatever. And I remember it was the first time I raised my voice to start. I slammed my fist down on the table and I just yelled, decide. And the party, everyone was stunned. Everyone like jolted up and everyone's eyes went wide and they all just looked at me, and like I scared the shit out of them. And it was at that moment they were like, this is a vampire lord, he's not messing around, like he's gonna kill one of us. And everyone was just super shocked. And then of course the paladin in the party was like, okay, we're you can just kill me, whatever. So then Strahd killed her and specifically left them with a diamond, actually, so that they could resurrect. No, he killed her and turned her into a zombie, so that they would have to kill her. They would have to put her down, but then left them a diamond later so that they could bring her back, because killing her once was so much fun. He wanted to do it again. Anyways, point being there, having this villain who was super calm for like a couple of months in game, like this was like session 9 or 10, to suddenly like snap and be like, oh man, that was a great tension building. That was really the release of tension, because him just showing up is tension building in and of itself, right? Because he didn't need to get riled up until then, but he was just so upset that they would dare cross his will. The second thing that I do a lot, which is a much shorter point, is waiting to reveal information about monsters, because any good horror enthusiast will tell you that the moment a monster becomes less scary is when you see the whole thing for the first time, right? Like in horror specifically, when you hear a monster's done these terrible things and you only like catch a glimpse of it, and you see the silhouette like at the end of the hallway in a dungeon or whatever, you know it's out there somewhere, that kind of thing. It's scary. But once you're like rolling dice and you're fighting it, it's no longer really scary. Now it's like, okay, we're throwing down, like this is the fight part. But by waiting until the last possible second to have that revelation for your players, it can really build tension, because that's like classic Lovecraftian thought, right? Like the oldest fear in mankind is the fear of the unknown. So yeah, that those would be my two biggest tips for building tension in your game.
Yeah, great ways to keep the players on their toes. AJ, what's your take on that?
The very good points from both Fred and Josiah there. I really like the idea of like, I have had that pulled on me before, where I've been leaning in on a Call of Cthulhu game, listening to this person who's supposed to be near catatonic due to the horrors they've experienced. And then all of a sudden he shouted at me in the form of this NPC. And I literally leapt back from the table. It was beautiful. And he's done that to me at least a couple of times, and it's not easy to do that to me. I'm normally like, oh, okay, but yeah, he sucked me in and he shocked me out of my socks. I've done that on a few occasions as well, but it was I was playing with a bunch of very experienced players. Matt Click was one of them, if anybody's Matt Click's channel, and he was fighting in a desert, open desert, and they were facing a bunch of ropers who were inside a petrified forest. So it was a perfect environment outside of their normal environment, and I didn't say you're facing a roper. I just talked about what their characters were seeing and experiencing, and then when it finally hit them, of like when its eye opened and they realized what they were actually facing, it was like, oh, I can't believe you did that to us, and so that was feather in my hat. It's like, gotcha. But it was that not revealing something and just describing the environment. So I'm showing them, I'm not telling them. They're looking through their character's eyes, not the player eyes. So they're not thinking about stats and what their next attack is going to be, and like what skill bonuses and stuff they have. They're thinking, what is my character doing? What can they do? What's going on in the situation? Like a mimic is fairly obvious when you just present it by itself in a room. There's a chest and blood, and they're naturally very suspicious of it, and they know that you're the sort of person who is going to throw a mimic at them. What they're not expecting is a mimic to show up randomly in a boss fight, because they've like, there's a lever over there that looks like there's a portcullis which is coming down, so that there's the tension of the environment that they're in facing the monster is changing moment to moment, and they have to keep on top of it. Otherwise, it's going to they're going to lose a benefit that they could potentially have in the fight, or it's going to drastically detriment them. So, for instance, the portcullis is opening, and there's another monster on the other side that the big boss monster is going to have as an ally at any second, unless they do something to deal with that. So you've automatically split the party into two tactical decisions. One is ignore that, deal with this monster, try and kill it as quickly as possible before the next one arrives, or split off somebody who goes and deals with that while we're holding the big boss monster back, and now we're just at a disadvantage, and the tension just goes real fast. When they get to the lever, they discover it's not a lever at all, it's a mimic. And it's like, oh shit. So how does this portcullis actually work then? It turns out it's behind the big monster. You didn't see it because you didn't observe the area before you actually started the fight. So it's like, it's all of those things tied together, and you're juggling the capabilities of your characters. It's like they can only be in one place at a time, and timing, description, engaging all of the senses of your players. Like, you can get them on the edge of their seat just describing a drip that they don't know where the sound is coming from in an otherwise still and quiet environment. Anything that you say is they're latching onto it as their clue, because it's your voice and your words and your description is all they've got to go on in the game. So the way that you craft your words and your descriptions is very, very important for building their imagination, and also engaging them as an active participant in telling the story. So give them, like, step back, don't monologue, give them a chance to talk amongst themselves and role play and things like that, and step in when they pause and they're looking for input. That's one of the most important things, is know as a DM when it's time to shut up. Exactly as Fred said, don't monologue about the background and all the stuff that their character knows. Build the story, build the environment with them as you play. Don't give them a 10-page campaign backstory, just like you wouldn't want a 10-page character backstory right at the start of the game. It's exactly the same thing. Build the story slowly and interactively with them, and let them contribute to it as well. Like, if their character's got a certain set of skills, build situations into your game where those skills let their character shine. And it's you can build tension where they want to do something that character's really good at, but they can't quite get at it yet. And it's that tension of, I want to, this is the perfect situation for a fireball, but there's
someone standing right there.
Yeah. It's like, I can't do it because there's casks of oil all around us. So it's all these, it's the environment around them, all of the different elements. Keep them engaged with side stuff coming at them all the time. They can only focus their attention one place or another, and you build the tension out of frustration about them wanting to exceed expectations and shine and become the hero that they want to be. So you let them fulfill those, and occasionally the dice just cut them off at the knees and down they go. But also character death is extremely important for that as well, because if there's no consequences, there's no reward.
Yep, that's very true. Without that, and like you said, the dice can sometimes also provide tension. As the idea of the unknown, anything can happen with that die, with the roll of the die. So that's also a point of tension for the players. As for me, there were a lot of great tips here. Some things I already wrote down, but one tip that I can provide is set a ticking clock with something that the characters care about, and either have them decide which option they're going with, which option they're choosing to follow, or just setting the time limit and watching them try to find the solution. So that works pretty well with puzzles, but also on a grand scale, when you have like 3 days before something terrible happens, before the giant monster is released, and they have no idea what to do and how to prepare. So building up to that can also create tension on a longer span. So that's also awesome.
Definitely. Awesome. One thing you mentioned too, Aviad, that I didn't even think to bring up until just now is regarding the dice. Do you guys ever open roll, like roll things out in the open in front of the players?
All the time.
Because open rolling for things that are like intense is the best. I do it. I think the thing I do it the most frequently for is if they have an NPC with them, I'll roll the NPC's death saves in the open. Because then if it's someone they don't want to die, that it's like, okay, that can be intense. Or like if they're in a big boss fight and it's like, okay, this is the pinnacle moment, like this roll could sway things greatly in their favor or greatly against them. Like someone's trying to cast banishment on the boss or something, I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna roll this in the open. The boss has a +7, so he needs to get like an 11 or higher here. So if he gets an 11 or more, we succeed. And then everyone's like, oh man, what's gonna happen? And then everyone gets to react to that at the same time. That can be really funny. And it also can ratchet up the tension in a really fun way. That was just something I wanted to add.
Talking about a dramatic moment.
Amazing. Yeah,
when you're
super dramatic moment.
When you're slamming the table due to like building that tension and stuff, I'm not rolling this dice when the boss monster comes out. I'm rolling this big metal monster here. Oh. It's gonna hit the table and freak you out, possibly damage one of your cups.
I have a boss dice too.
1 point of bludgeoning damage.
Here it is. It's my baseball, dude. This thing.
Too fast.
Hey, I rolled a nat 20. Sick. I don't know what that means. Anyway, yeah, you got to have a boss dice. If you take anything away from this video, get yourself a boss dice.
I need to get myself a boss dice.
It lets you roll an intimidation check against your players, not their characters.
And that's it for this video. Thank you everyone for joining us and for this lovely chat. Again, let's go around and everyone tell us where we can find you and on the internets. So Fred, tell us where we can find you.
Well, you can find me on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook under How to D&D. You probably might find me under Frederick Wheeler on Twitter. I don't know how it sort of lists me, but yeah, those are the places.
Awesome. Josiah, back to you.
Yeah, if you search Dungeon Dad on YouTube, you'll find me. I'm also on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Tumblr, maybe. I don't know. Has anyone used that website since the great Exodus?
Probably someone.
Yeah.
Tumblr. Tumblr hates us.
But you can find me at Dungeon Dad, primarily here on YouTube.
Awesome. And AJ, where can we find you again?
Yep, you can find me on YouTube. Just type in AJ Pickett and you'll find all of my content. You can also find me on Facebook if anybody still uses it. I admin a bunch of groups that are all started with Sages of, and then the specific world setting. So Sages of Forgotten Realms is one of our biggest ones. We do Eberron, Birthright, all sorts of different stuff. And they're really good communities that focus on the lore of the game. So if you want to learn about it without all the politics and that sort of stuff, we basically stick to the scholarship.
Oh, a lot of good things in there. So thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, remember that you are awesome. Keep being awesome. And we'll see you beyond the screen. Bye.